She ghosted you. She went cold. She pulled away. You're staring at your phone, waiting for her name to light it up. Don't, because the moment you chase, you lose. The moment you react, she wins. And the moment you choose peace over reaction, she starts wondering if she ever had you in the first place. That's when the game flips, and that's when you become truly powerful. Before we dive in, comment, I choose peace over reaction. Say it with your chest. Say it like you mean it. Because today is not just another video. It's the line in the sand. Today, you stop reacting and start mastering. You've been taught to chase, taught to explain yourself, taught to prove your worth. But none of that works. And deep down, you know it. She was cold. She was distant. You kept pouring more into a bucket with no bottom. You're not here to chase anymore. You're here to reclaim your energy, your power, your mind. And if this message hits your soul, support the channel, because this content isn't just talk. It's life-changing insight. By supporting us, you're not just helping this video, you're helping thousands of men out there who need to hear this message. Number 1. She pulled back. Now what? She was into you, enthusiastic, responsive, present. Then, out of nowhere, her tone shifts. Her replies shrink. Her energy feels cold. She's not asking questions anymore. She's no longer texting first. The emojis fade. Suddenly, she's busy. Every time you try to make plans, you feel it. And let's not pretend you don't. Her energy changed, and now you're trying to decode silence like it's a language. That drop in attention hits harder than words ever could. Your instincts scream to do something, say something, fix something. But that instinct is the exact programming that breaks you. Because what you do next decides everything. Most people chase. They reach out, double text, ask, is everything okay? Or did I do something wrong? They try to fix what wasn't theirs to fix in the first place. But she knows what she's doing. She's watching, not consciously in every case, but on some level, she's observing how you respond to withdrawal. This is what the modern emotional game looks like. Subtle, passive, designed to measure your self-worth based on how quickly you crumble. You have two choices, react or retreat. React, and she sees you as replaceable, desperate, fragile. Retreat, and you confuse her. You force her to question her assumptions. You shake the script. She expected a chase, but silence is unpredictable, and unpredictability is unsettling. But it's also powerful, because your silence isn't empty. It's loaded with clarity, with intent, with standards. Silence says, I don't need to react to be powerful. It says, if your energy shifted, so will my presence. It's not about manipulation, it's about message. When someone pulls away and you stay still, you tell them everything they need to know without a single word. You don't fight for what's walking away. You let it go and protect your peace. Because if it's real, it comes back. If it doesn't, it was never yours. There's power in doing nothing, and make no mistake. Doing nothing doesn't mean being passive. It means choosing yourself when someone else chooses confusion. It means mastering the most underrated skill in emotional intelligence, not reacting. And that mastery doesn't just protect you, it elevates you. It changes how people see you. When you don't reach out, they realize they never controlled you. When you don't respond, they realize your validation wasn't for sale. You're not punishing them. You're positioning yourself in alignment with your value. Most don't have the discipline to stay quiet. But the few who do, they write the rules. Your stillness isn't indifference, it's reflection. and that reflection shines brighter than noise. When she pulls back, don't chase. Detach. Don't question your worth. Observe hers. Don't spiral. Focus. When she pulls away, lean into your path, your vision, your mission. Don't just sit still. Build still. You are not a reaction. You are a response. A composed, measured, intentional response. If she needed to test you to feel something, let her feel what happens when you walk away. If she needed space, give her the universe. But don't be where you're not wanted. Don't try to force doors that lock themselves. Don't shrink yourself to make someone else feel big. She pulled away because something changed. Maybe she met someone. Maybe she's bored. Maybe she just wanted to see if you dance for her validation. Whatever the reason, your response must be the same. Power in presence, strength in silence. Say nothing. Do nothing. Let her sit in the reality she created. She wanted distance. Now she gets to feel it. She wanted space. Let her breathe in the silence. Because she didn't expect you to go quiet. She expected drama. She expected effort. She expected begging. But instead, she got peace. And peace is terrifying when you're used to chaos. That peace makes her rethink everything. That's how you become unforgettable. Not by fighting to stay in her life, but by disappearing and letting your absence speak. If she returns, she returns. If she doesn't, that silence protected you. Either way, you win. So when she pulls back, don't write paragraphs. Write chapters in your own story. Chapters of focus, discipline, gym time, reading, money moves, mental clarity. While she's debating if she still likes you, become someone even better than the version she once liked. And when you do that, her opinion won't matter anymore. You won't even want her to come back. Because now you've tasted peace. And once you taste peace, you never settle for war again. Number 2, what she sees when you go quiet. When you go quiet, the shift is seismic. Not for you, but for her. Because people expect noise. They expect feedback, a reaction, some sign that they still matter in your mind. So when she says something cold and you don't flinch, it throws her off. When she goes distant and you don't chase, it unsettles her. Because now the pattern is broken, and broken patterns are the start of new perspectives. She checks her phone more, refreshes her feed, scans for signs. Did he watch my story? Did he like my post? Is he online? She doesn't message you, but she's watching. Don't get it twisted. When you go quiet, your absence starts making more noise than your presence ever did. Silence is not empty. It's full of meaning, power, and purpose. Your silence makes her realize you are not waiting. You are not sitting by the phone. You are not desperate for closure. And that revelation breaks her rhythm. Most people live off emotional reactions from others. They feed on it. When she sees that her pullback didn't destabilize you, she begins to question her own power. This is where the shift happens. She realizes you're not clinging, that you don't need her confusion in your clarity, that you're not trying to fix a broken signal. Because now, instead of chasing her approval, you're busy being better, busy building, busy healing. And that's terrifying to someone who thought you'd always be around. Your silence makes her imagine scenarios. It forces her to confront the very questions she tried to avoid by pulling away. Questions become louder than any text you could have sent. You don't need to say a word because your silence now speaks volumes. She starts to wonder, did I misjudge him? Was he more solid than I thought? Why is he okay without me? That confusion is not punishment, it's reflection. It's her seeing herself in your silence And in that mirror, she doesn't see the guy she used to emotionally manage. She sees someone who doesn't fold, someone who doesn't need her, someone who might actually be better without her. And that scares her. Because when a man stops reacting, he becomes a mystery. And mystery is power. She doesn't know where your head's at. She can't predict your next move. She can't gauge your emotions. That unpredictability is magnetic, because now she has to chase clarity. She has to ask the questions. She has to do what you used to do. Silence isn't a tactic. It's a testament. A testament that you're not addicted to her energy, that you don't need to argue to feel connected, that your value isn't determined by her attention. And now, for the first time, she sees the version of you that doesn't explain, doesn't beg, doesn't bend. She sees a man who walks, and that vision stays in her head long after the silence begins. She plays your last conversation over and over, rereads your texts, wonders what she missed. But you're not responding. You're evolving. And every moment of your silence builds that gap, that space, that distance until eventually she starts to fill it with regret. Not because you forced it, but because you refused to fix what she broke. That's what silence does. It creates clarity, and that clarity reveals everything. Who was really invested, who was playing games, who thought you'd always be there. So go quiet. Let her talk to her own echo. Let her chase her own thoughts. Let her sit with the version of herself who thought your love was infinite and your patience was permanent. Because it's not. You went quiet not to hurt, but to heal. Not to confuse, but to clarify. And now that the noise is gone, all that's left is truth. And that truth is so loud, so deafening, that even she can't ignore it. Number 3, reaction is weakness, silence is power. Every time you react, you give a part of yourself away. You don't even notice it at first, but piece by piece you start shrinking. You react to her cold message with warmth, and she reads it as weakness. You react to her pulling away with pursuit, and she sees you as desperate. You react to her indifference with over-explanation, and she views you as emotionally unstable. And this isn't even about her. It's about your discipline, your awareness, your internal strength. Every reaction says, "You still control my state of mind." It hands her the emotional steering wheel. It puts your worth in her hands, and she knows it. Whether she says it out loud or not, she feels the imbalance. She sees it when you trip over yourself trying to earn her attention. She sees it when you over-explain to defend something that didn't need defending. But when you go quiet, when you don't give her the emotional feedback she expected, everything shifts. The power resets. The roles reverse. Now she's the one asking questions. Now she's the one who's unsure. Because silence doesn't just say, "I'm not playing your game." It says, "I see the game, and I'm above it." And that shakes people, especially those who are used to manipulating reactions to feel powerful. Because silence kills manipulation. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't engage. You can't bait someone who won't bite. And once she realizes that her energy no longer controls yours, she either levels up or she leaves. Either way, you win. Because a life ruled by reaction is chaos, but a life grounded in silence is calm. That calm is magnetic. It makes people lean in. It forces them to evaluate their own behavior. It invites self-reflection. But most importantly, it keeps your peace protected. When you react, you lose your edge. You get drawn into emotional battles that leave you drained, resentful, and off-center. When you stay silent, you conserve your energy for what matters. Your purpose, your path, your principles. The hardest thing to do in today's world is not to speak, but it's also the most powerful. Because in a world addicted to noise, silence is authority. It doesn't mean you're ignoring your feelings. It means your feelings aren't running the show. You acknowledge them, you observe them, and you choose not to let them dictate your moves. That's emotional maturity. That's stoicism, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. People think Stoics are cold. They're not. They're composed. And that composure in the face of chaos is what makes them kings. Your silence is not weakness. It's precision. It says what needs to be said without saying anything. It forces others to meet you at your level, and if they can't, they fall away. Not because you pushed them, but because they couldn't handle not being able to control you. Let that sink in. Every time you don't react, you're choosing freedom. You're choosing sovereignty. You're choosing to own your narrative instead of outsourcing it to someone else's drama. That's not indifference. That's discipline. And that's where real power lives. Number 4, acceptance doesn't mean approval. Acceptance is misunderstood. People think if you accept her behavior, you're condoning it, that you're weak, that you've given up. But real acceptance isn't surrender. It's clarity. It's seeing things as they are, not as you wish they were, and choosing your response with intention. She pulled away? Accept it. She stopped reciprocating? Accept it. She switched up the energy without explanation? Accept it. But understand what acceptance really means. It means, I see what you did, I feel what I feel, and I still choose peace over chaos. It's the opposite of weakness. It's strength at its most refined. It's the ability to stand in the fire of emotional disappointment and say, this won't break me. This won't change me. This won't define me. Most people chase closure because they think it will bring healing, but closure is often just a desperate attempt to delay detachment. The truth is, you don't need her explanation to move on. You need your own conviction. You don't need her acknowledgement to validate your pain. You need your own awareness. And when you realize that, you stop waiting for her to come around. You stop needing her to make it right. You stop believing that peace is found in her words. Because peace is internal. It's self-generated. And when you cultivate that peace within yourself, acceptance becomes second nature. You no longer need to argue. You no longer need to prove your side. You no longer beg for understanding. You simply observe and act accordingly. That's acceptance. That's what Stoicism teaches us. The art of releasing the need to control outcomes and redirecting that energy into mastering our response. Because your reaction is always your responsibility. No one else gets to determine how you show up. She doesn't have that power unless you hand it to her. And why would you? Why would you give the keys to your emotional state to someone who's already shown they can't handle it? Acceptance isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's not saying, I'm okay with this. It's saying, this is what it is. Now what? And the answer to that question is always the same. I protect my peace. I walk in my worth. I move forward with clarity. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You don't need to get even. You just need to get aligned with truth, with self-respect, with purpose. And that starts the moment you accept. Not when it feels good, not when it makes sense, but when it's necessary. Because the alternative, resisting what is, only leads to suffering. Acceptance frees you from that. It gives you the power to take your energy back, and once you have that energy, you become unstoppable. Number 5. Let her feel the consequences. We live in a culture where boundaries are often confused with ego, but they're not the same. Boundaries are love in action, first for yourself, then for others. And the highest form of self-respect is allowing someone to feel the consequences of their actions without softening the blow. Not as punishment, but as education. Because people don't learn from lectures, they learn from absence. They learn when access is revoked, when the energy they once took for granted is no longer on tap. And that's what you must give her. Not another explanation, not another emotional rescue, but space. Real space. Space that echoes with accountability. Space that reminds her of what she had and what she lost. You do this not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Better than the emotional doormat she expected. Better than the version of you that used to tolerate disrespect under the guise of love. This isn't spite. It's sovereignty. When you let someone feel the consequence of losing you, you're offering them the chance to evolve, to grow, to confront their patterns. Whether they do or not, that's not your concern. Your role is not to carry the weight of their decisions. It's to stand firm in the reality they created. She distanced herself. Now she gets to live with that distance. She made you an option. Now she sees how life feels without your consistency. That's not manipulation. It's reflection. It's showing people their own choices in the mirror of your silence. And that mirror doesn't lie. It's clear. It's cold. But it's honest. When you react, you interrupt that reflection. You cushion the fall. You become the emotional crutch. But when you stay still, she gets to walk on her own emotional legs, and that journey teaches her more than words ever could. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disappear, not out of rage, but out of reason. Because your presence is not free. Your time is not free. Your energy is not infinite. It's precious. And anyone who mishandles it should feel the absence of it, not to hurt them, but to protect you. That's the power of consequence. It sets the standard. It draws the line. It reminds people that love without respect isn't love at all. Understands that you'll either see a different woman return or nothing at all, and either outcome is a win. Because the only thing worse than losing someone who doesn't value you is keeping them and losing yourself in the process. Let her feel it. Let the silence teach her what your words couldn't, and let that lesson free you both. Number 6. Build in silence, grow in her absence. Your silence is not a pause, it's a plan. It's not a retreat, it's a realignment. When you stop reacting, you create space, not just between you and her, but between the old you and the evolved you. This is where transformation begins, in the silence, in the solitude, in the sacred space between who you were and who you're becoming. Use it. Don't waste it. Don't sit there waiting for her to come back. Building elevate. Become so focused on your own evolution that her absence becomes irrelevant. Get in the gym, stack your money, read the books, study the mind, master your craft. Become the most dangerous version of yourself, not in violence, but in value. Because a man who has options is never desperate, and a person who's evolved beyond their past no longer looks back. When she sees you glowing in silence, thriving without her, smiling without her, living fully without her, that's the real revenge. Not pettiness, progress, not games, growth. When you level up in her absence, it sends a message louder than any words. You thought I needed you, but I needed this. This time alone. This time in reflection. This time to sharpen my edges and raise my standards. That's what silence buys you. Clarity and focus. While she's wondering what you're thinking, you're executing. While she's checking if you watched her story, you're building your own story. And in that space, you become untouchable. Not because you're unavailable, but because you're unshakable. You don't need her to see it. You don't need her to applaud. Your growth isn't for her. It's for you. It's for the younger version of you who didn't know his worth. It's for the future version who refuses to settle. It's for the present version who's done playing small. This is how you win. Not by reacting, but by rising. Not by explaining, but by evolving. And when you do that, when you build in silence and glow in absence, you won't care whether she comes back or not. Because now you're walking in purpose. And that purpose is magnetic. The right people will feel it. The wrong ones will fall away, and you'll finally be free. Silence isn't weakness, it's control. Reaction isn't strength, it's surrender. You don't win her back by chasing. You win yourself back by detaching. And when your peace becomes more important than her presence, you've already won. So choose silence, choose clarity, choose yourself. Drop this in the comments if this hit deep. My silence is my power. Say it, mean it, live it. If this message lit a fire inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who's still chasing confusion. Support the mission because every time you do, you help bring these truths to the people who need them the most. You help men break free. You help them reclaim their power. And you make sure no one stays stuck in silence, not knowing they were always the answer. Support the channel. Change your life. Help change someone else's.